Hello, my name is Chase Rose, Associate Wealth Advisor at Hixon Zuercher Capital Management.
And I'm Jordan Shaw. I'm also an Associate Wealth Advisor at Hixon Zuercher Capital Management. And we are here to give you an economic market update for June, looking back at the month of May.
Yeah. Austin shaved his entire face except for just his mustache. So marketing wouldn't let him on the video this month. So Jordan has kindly stepped in Austin's place. I'm actually taking Austin's role of giving some market reviews and we'll just kind of tag team this. So I'll start with the markets, Jordan, if you don't mind. So market performance for May was positive, primarily due to overall investment or investor optimism about the economic outlook moving forward. So with that, the S&P 500 up 5.32%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 2.34%. NASDAQ up 7.34% for the month of May. Small caps up 4.68%. Developed international stocks up 5.25%. Emerging markets, which was the big winner in April, up only 0.62%. So it was a little bit of a laggard in the month of May. And then bonds even participated in the uptrend and were up 1.32%. So overall, a great month in May for the general bond market, or in stock market as well, I suppose.
Up and up?
Yeah,
definitely. Speaking of on the up and up, President Donald Trump in the news, of course, as he always is. And
yeah,
right at the tail end of May, a New York State court jury found him guilty of 34 counts of falsification of business records. In this case, it will be a felony charge, and we will have to wait until July 11th to see what the sentencing actually brings. But a fun tidbit there is that is 4 days before the Republican National Convention. So do with that what you will.
Timed very well.
Yes, I would say so. Interesting.
Can he still run?
He can still run at this point. Yep.
All right.
Nothing against it.
He might not be able to physically run, but
no.
As far as the
Might
election,
be some limitations there. Yeah.
As far as the election, he'll be a participant, I guess is a better use of word there. So inflation has been a very common topic of conversation over the last 3 years or so going on. So April inflation, which is reported in the month of May, as we all know, was in line with expectations, up 0.3% month over month and 3.4% year over year. That is headline CPI. This continues the theme of inflation cooling. It is definitely lower than it was a year and even 2 years ago, but it is cooling at a very slow rate. The Federal Reserve had their month, or I guess it's not monthly, they have 11 meetings during the course of a 12-month calendar year, so they don't exactly have one each month, but in May they had their meeting and they maintained their stance of holding off on rate cuts until inflation heads back down more confidently towards their 2% long-term target. So with this expectation of rates potentially being higher for longer, bond demand did increase in the month of May, which, as you might recall, the bond market was up just over 1%. So this did send yields slightly lower with the higher demand, which obviously increases bond prices. So, yeah.
Always interesting. See what they have to say at those meetings.
Yeah.
Looking back at May, something that is maybe inverse with inflation, or at least surprising in that sense, is movies have taken a dip. No one's going to the movies. The month of May is at a 26-year low for Hollywood at the domestic box office, even with big movies like Fall Guy, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I think should have just been called Kingdom of the Apes, and Furiosa. Movies like that were not enough to bring that number up. Only $520 million was made in the month of May. Pocket change.
My goodness. Yeah, pocket change. 520 million being pocket change. This is insane to think about. I just don't think movies are that good anymore. That's my own personal.
Maybe they aren't. Yeah.
But that coupled with awesome movies are just on streaming services so much faster than they used to be.
There it is.
Why would you spend money at the movie theater? I mean, you're going to go and spend $30-$40 getting snacks and everything.
Who has 7 hours of free time to watch a movie too, with how long they are these days?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. All right. So in what is now becoming a very common theme, NVIDIA posted a big win during their earnings call in the month of May, which was their call for the first quarter of financial data. So as of the day of this recording, NVIDIA has actually surpassed Apple as the second largest company in the S&P 500 and the world, which is insane to think about because they're up about 207% year over year, and their run is just continuing to move forward. Based on their earnings call, they did beat revenue and earnings expectations, and their forward guidance is even better than expected, which is something that happens, it seems like, every quarter nowadays. They also announced a 10-to-1 stock split. So if you had one share of NVIDIA, congratulations, you now have 10 shares. Good for you. But the price got cut too. So you won't end up any better than you were before, but the price is cheaper and you have more shares out in the open market now. But they also posted a 150% dividend increase on their quarterly payment. So definitely good news. Definitely a great time to be an NVIDIA investor.
Absolutely. Yep. I don't know if anyone really had heard much about NVIDIA not too long ago.
Yeah, no kidding.
Compared to some of these larger companies. So, zombie mortgages. Speaking of not hearing about something for a while, this is where individuals have, 15, 16 years ago, when the housing market was in a little bit of trouble, you may recall.
We were just wee boys at that point.
Wee boys. Barely remember it. Couldn't quite buy a house at that point in time.
No, not quite.
Individuals would take out a second mortgage to finance different renovations maybe, or purchase another home right before everything got crazy. So this is 2006, 2007 timeframe. And then those mortgages would be sold to private equity investors, and individuals would no longer receive statements from them thinking that the loan had been forgiven. And the investors or debt collectors in some cases would wait until the equity in that person's home was enough to cover the first mortgage, and they could collect on the second mortgage that has been building interest and not being paid over the course of, in this case right now, 17 years for a lot of these people that have been coming up in the last month. And then they can come and take your home. So unless you can whip up $500,000 in cash.
Coming back from the dead. Yeah. Zombie mortgages, I get it. I understand.
Back from the dead. They don't eat brains, though.
No,
they eat your house.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yeah. I almost would prefer my brain to be eaten.
I think so, too. Yeah.
Another big SEC ruling, the month prior, there was a big Bitcoin spot ETF, which was that announcement was allowed to be invested across the general market. And now in a new SEC rule, they're now, and this is something that was announced last year, but they are now requiring the exchange of stock for payment to settle after just a 24-hour period, which is actually better known as T+1. So dating all the way back to 2017, the standard was T+3. So if you were liquidating any stock in exchange for cash or any other sort of payment, it would normally take about 3 days for that the buyer and the seller to settle that transaction. And in, I believe, 2019 or 2020, it moved to T+2. Now, as of May 27th, T+1 is the new standard. So this is just a more increased push towards better liquidation in the overall market. And so how this would change for you if you're an investor, whether it be, at Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, any of the big platforms, if you are buying or selling stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, things like that, you should expect your transaction or your trade to be settled after just 1 day, which is definitely a big change and a big adjustment that a lot of these firms are having to make. So definitely big news.
Interesting how that shakes out. But in not so big news, Xfinity released, actually Comcast released a new streaming bundle. If you have these 3 streaming services, you may benefit from it. Peacock, Netflix, and Apple TV now are in a discounted bundle, which is interesting, but you have to be an Xfinity customer to be eligible for that.
Ooh,
so
I see what they're doing here.
Yep, it's always trying to get more subscribers and see how that all plays out. But there's always a new one coming out every couple of months, it feels like. So
there's so many streaming services out there nowadays. I feel like 10, 15 years ago it was primarily just Netflix, and now there's so many streaming services. You're starting to see very all the new rave is all these bundles nowadays, right?
Yep.
This being one of them. We just announced the ESPN bundle not too long ago, or the new sports streaming service, I suppose. And so all these bundles are just taking over the world.
Do you remember old school TV? Like
I do.
The 7 channels that you'd watch, and you'd have access to hundreds.
Those are the days.
Those were the days.
It's almost like I almost feel like these streaming services are, in one way or another, trying to get back to that.
They are.
It's almost like we had it right in the first place.
Yep.
Hey.
Full circle.
Yeah. All right. And as is tradition nowadays on our monthly market video, I have our Florida news story of the month. So put your seatbelts on. We are bracing for a very interesting story this month. I try to keep it PG, so I'll use adult words here, but I'm just going to try to keep this as clean as possible. A homeless man wearing no pants and a woman's blouse drove a vehicle into the lobby of the Martin County Jail, so a local jail, and he proceeded to pour motor oil all over the floor and threw rubber snakes everywhere, and was threatening the lives of the people in that jail. And of course he was arrested. But just an interesting tactic. You don't wear pants, you drive right into a prison lobby, and you start throwing snakes and oil everywhere. I don't know if it's a foolproof intimidation method, but it definitely would work.
If they were
for
real
me.
snakes.
That too. And I wouldn't put it past them. If you're living in Florida, you can find snakes just about everywhere. But
that's true. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It was the picture. There was a pretty graphic image. The guy didn't have pants on. So
there's a graphic image.
I'm going to save everyone at home the courtesy of having to see that. But yeah, it was just motor oil and little curly rubber snakes all over the floor. It was definitely an interesting crime scene investigation.
You saved me from having to research this.
Of course. Well,
the image is spared.
We share an office, so I'm definitely going to be showing him anyways, whether he wants to or
not. In not so PG news, the world's oldest sloth celebrated his birthday in May.
Okay.
And his name is Jan. Interestingly enough.
Sure.
He is Linnaeus's two-toed sloth. He's 54 years old, and I thought, is that really that impressive? Sloths only normally live between 20 and 30 years.
Oh my goodness.
So he's doubled on that. And even though sloths are mostly known as procrastinators for their slowness, this sloth was very quick to father many children. So he has 22 slothlings that he is the father of.
11 times as many toes as he has.
That
seems like the less toes you have, the longer you live.
Yeah, so
I might need to
cut off some toes.
Yeah, I need to cut off some toes if I want to live longer. So that is not advice. No. Don't cut off any toes. But yeah, thank you. So I think that's all we have today. Thank you for joining us. As mentioned earlier, I'm Chase. This is Jordan. Remember that nothing that we said today is investment advice. However, if you have any questions about your financial situation, feel free to give us a call at 419-425-2400, or you can shoot us an email at hello@hzcapital.com. Until next time, as I said, Jordan and Chase, we're signing off. See you later.
You imagine being there in that jail?
I know, that'd be crazy. You're just like minding your own business, all of a sudden there's a naked man.
Honestly, if I'm living in Florida,
the wall and throwing snakes everywhere.
That's wild.